So this is the demonstration how the game can be played. The Long Confinement postcards game. First, the setup. Roman dice are arranged here. Players can reposition the pips as they choose, but the total must remain the same. There are 6 dice, and the total number of pips is 30. Let's say that on forage we put a 6, which means that one of those 5s needs to decrease, and the remaining Roman dice, besiegers dice, are placed in forts. And you can easily see that we must place more dice in some of the forts. But this means also that we can reposition the dots a little further, just to give us a little upgrade of sorts. The Massilian defender has to do the same, but they have 4 regular dice, 16 pips total, and albiki die that must be kept in a different color. 1 die needs to go on the fleet space, and there must be a die on the wall, on each section of the wall, and 1 die in reserve. Right now we will do this slightly differently, and those pips, they also can be reassigned. So let's say that we will decrease the reserve and increase the fleet value to make greater possibility that an event in favor of defenders will kick off. Okay, the 10 marker is on the turn 1. Right now we need to shuffle the deck 24 cards from aces to 6s, 4 suits, and give as many cards to each player as they have current morale. So for Romans it will be 6, for defenders it will be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. For defender 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If this would be played with the solitaire mode, the defender would not have a separate hand, but this particular demonstration is to show the play with the 2 players, which means that I will be playing both sides, and because of this we can play with open hands. No reason to withhold this sort of information. Romans always begin, but first thing of the initial turn is the event. So there were 2 naval battles during the siege of Massilia, and it kicks off with the first one. We use a die roll of d6, a separate, to see if we can roll 6, but there are some additional modifiers visible here. We have enough pips to make it possible that there is +1 to the die roll, and we could place the green albiki die in the fleet space just as well. In any case, to succeed in our battle we need to roll 5 or 6, and it's 5, so there will be no blockade for the next 2 turns. This is important for the event of in the next turn. But even more importantly, blue morale besiegers needs to be decreased by 1. This is going to be crucial. So now the besieger does not need to draw, so we go to the execution segment of the turn, which simply means that we will be moving and trying to construct some siege equipment and maybe start building blockades just as well. It's done on 1-by-1 basis. Players do not have to use all the cards, but certainly the pressure is on the besieger to first create walls. If all 3 walls are created, the conditions for blockade, barring those naval battle results, the conditions for blockade will be in place, and possible morale drops for the besieged. First things first, so we are just starting to occupy the wall sections. Any value can be used if we are not fighting, only moving, then it doesn't really matter what value of the card we are plopping down. Now that this is done, to start constructing walls, we have to play 1 card, but it has to have a bigger value than the construction cost in the bottom left corner, so 3. In other words, to start constructing wall, we need to play a card 4 or higher. So in this case, we have those values. The wall counter is placed down in the space, but on unfinished side. So now, if we want to finish constructing this wall, we have to play a second card that is of higher value than 2, so 3 or more, but the walls of those assets, they will be constructed also by the end of the turn, if they won't be eliminated by then by the counter-attacking defender. So Roman besieging player has the choice of either finishing this construction quickly or waiting until and hoping to endure until the end of the turn. In this case, we want to place all 3 walls on the construction being built side, which will open us for counterattacks, but maybe no counterattacks will actually happen. We shall see. Up. Okay, so Roman player used all the cards and his execution phase is done. Now it's back to the besieged player. Besieged player doesn't have maybe much to do, but this is only the explanation why the solitaire mode has been created only for the besieging side. Here the player can try to counter-attack if they have the right cards, strong enough cards, and if the conditions are deemed favorable. So what do I have in mind? So let's make an example of the battle or fighting in this in this game. First we are activating the green die, the albiki die, with a ace, so it moves to this area, which means that there will be a combat. Because we used ace, this is the card that will be serving as a base of calculations of the strength of the attacking side. But aces allow to play a second card, and so it happens that we have a 6 value card. Aces are 1, by the way. So the strength of the attacker is calculated as follows: 4 pips on a die, the cards that are played, 4 plus 7 means 11. Green die or albiki die always have +1 whenever they are in a fight, so 11 becomes 12. Now because the fight is being fought against the fortification that is being built with the modifier -1, this 12 becomes 11. And the question is, opposing side of the defender is calculated as the number of the pips present and the card draw from the top of the deck, randomly drawn. If because the fight is being fought in the fortified space, that provides negative modifier for the attacker, there is a rule that allows defender to play their card from a hand. But Romans did not conserve any single card, so we cannot benefit from the certainty of the result. So the question is how high this card can be. Will it be 5 plus something that will make it a tie into 11? Well, in this case Romans drew only 1, and in this case it simply means that 5 plus 1 means 6 versus, as you may remember, we calculated 11, so the difference is 5 points. Now this means that it's the Romans who will be suffering losses. And in this case, those losses, they can be allocated to a die or to the structure that is being built, because the difference is bigger than the structure value of 2. We simply can remove this wall from existence, or alternatively we can decide that we want to massacre the units, the pips. Difference of 5 mean that the entire die can be eliminated. The wall remains, the die is theoretically returning here, and for every 2 losses that were, if in the combat, in the fight, there are more than 2 pips lost, it means that the morale of the defender drops by 1. So even though there were more losses inflicted than 2, only 1 pip of morale has been lost. Now the question is for the besieged player, do they want to carry on? there is no, well, the cards will be retained in hands, and the units will always return to the controlled fortified spaces. So maybe I want to retain this 6 for now. Up, up, cleaning up cards. And if execution is done, then in the next section, fleet and forage, we check first fleet situation of the besieged. That is basically if there are 2 pips or less in this field, red morale drops by 1, but that's not the case. Romans, if they would be able to roll higher than the pip value in the forage section, here 6, their morale would drop down by 1, but of course it's impossible to roll higher than 6 on a 6-sided die, so this automatically succeeds. Now reorganization simply means that dice return to the fortified spaces if they are not in fortified spaces. And by the way, by saying fortified, I mean with negative modifier in the corner. So walls, it could be reserve as well for the besieged, or forts that have built-in modifier -2. When this is done, the pips, so for example Romans can move this surviving die with 5, bring it here. The pips that would be redistributed, let's say that Romans bring it up to 6. In fleet we do not need as much for now, so we can decrease this by 2 and increase the frontline troops to 1. Green cannot be split and always has to remain as such. And this concludes the first turn of the game. So let's build up to the execution phase of the second turn. First, going through the event, we see that blockade has not been established. I should flip all the walls to their constructed side. So now they are providing better defensive modifier. Blockade is not established because of the results of the first naval battle. So morale of the Reds does not drop, and this counter here is not flipped. The card draws, because Roman player has 4 morale, he gets only 4 cards, so practically less actions will be available to him, while red player, besieged player, can increase their hand to 5. So things are going very well for the besieged Massilia. Who shuffled this deck? Let's flip for the Romans. And the next what is going to happen, Romans will be trying to start constructing the ramps and possibly other assets, first ramps, then the towers and galleries, in order to try and start storming the walls. As we can see, there is one wall that is weaker than the others, so it's natural to choose this particular place. But maybe, just maybe, Romance would like to construct those walls somewhere in some other places, just as well. Well, we shall see, but for now I will stop and I will try to assemble the clip from this first turn.